Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
I named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in pints?
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who knows with great power probably comes a great responsibility to drink awesome beer. It's Frank. How are you today?
I'm doing well, and I do know that. I have learned that lesson the hard way. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the hard way? Somebody.
Well, I have the great responsibility to drink great beer. That's the
but you know, it's not like you have a responsibility to drink beer on a show called Beer with Geeks, Frank.
I do have that responsibility. I do.
All right.
I do. And that's the great power. The great power is this platform we have, this microphone that we have, and the great responsibility that comes with it is to drink great beer. However, I may have abdicated my responsibility this time.
Frank, how dare you abdicate your responsibility to drink beer when I also abdicated my responsibility to drink beer in the same episode? No, I'm just kidding. I'm drinking a beer. I'm better than you.
Okay. That was...
One of us must always be drinking a beer at one time during the recording of the show. That's the rule that the genie told us. Otherwise, we turn into a pillar of salt.
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm not drinking beer, but I am drinking bourbon. So it's still BWG.
Ooh, good for you.
As I hold up the empty bottle because I just finished it. This is a bourbon that I heard about on a podcast. I'd never heard of it before, but I was happy to come across it. It's called Henry McKenna. Henry McKenna Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, sour mash whiskey. And it's really, really good. Here's the thing about Henry McKenna. It's only $12 for a fifth.
Wow, that's cheap for bourbon.
Cheap,
never mind,
and it's
alcohol,
and it's good. Like, it's actually a decent. Like, it's I really, really enjoy it. I enjoy it as like a sipping whiskey. I mean, I'll make cocktails with it too, but it's something that I'll sip because I actually genuinely just enjoy it. And at those prices, I mean, you know, that's quite a good price. So, yeah, it is. It's my current the thing I'm currently enjoying, as far as budget bourbon goes. Henry McKenna, and I understand that they have some, like I think like a 10-year or 12-year or something like that are more aged, but this is just their bottom shelf product, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm revealing too much about my not refined taste in bourbon or something, but I like it. It's not the best I've ever tasted, that's for sure, but I sure like it.
Good for you. Good for you. Sometimes you don't have to have the best thing you've ever tasted.
You don't always have to have the best. Yeah.
Sometimes you can just enjoy a thing for it being a thing. It doesn't have to be the best, right?
Exactly. And I enjoy this just, you know, after a long week or whatever, just to kick back and enjoy something. It's something that I enjoy. And I know that there are better things, and I've enjoyed better things, but this is something that I'm enjoying right now. And yeah, it's quite good for what I want. So there you go. Sometimes there is something to be said for something that's just like, yeah, it's good. It's quite good. It's not the best, but it's good. I like it.
Yeah, I like that too. I'm drinking something that I would say is better than just good. I'm drinking a Peroni, Frank. I've had them on the show before.
Oh, yes.
They're still delicious. I'm still trying to turn my chromosomes Italian. I think it's kind of working. Bibbity boobity. Is that good?
I make it a spicy meatball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you are Italian, so you are allowed to make the spicy meatball if you want to.
I got it.
Yeah. I'm just, you know, whenever I go to somebody's house, I have to bring something with me, whether they ask for it or not. That's
right.
Like the thing. That's what I have to do.
Yeah, that's true. You do.
Yeah. Have you actually? There's a YouTube. Instagram video series. Have you like with the guy where he plays like, all the characters and he's his grandparents?
Oh,
and they're like the giant face is like, oh, why you no bring something? Yeah,
the Italian old Italian people. Yes. Oh,
yeah.
my gosh.
I love them so much. My wife, who is Italian, gets a huge kick. Who gets a huge kick out of them because she's like, "Yep, that's not exaggerated."
Accurate. No, it's not.
Yeah,
it is not exaggerated.
Oh, it's so good. I love it so much. But Frank, my beer aside, we were just speaking of things that are just things, and you can take them or leave them. They don't have to be the best things in the world. They have some good aspects, but you know what? Sometimes the thing is just a thing, and that's okay. And that reminds me of the Amazing Spider-Man series.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Sometimes a thing is just a thing.
Just a thing, and that's fine.
Yeah. Frank, do you follow Spider-Man Twitter at all?
Not really, no.
I do for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe because I like Spider-Man. Maybe
That's a good reason.
Yeah, it is a good reason. I like Spider-Man very much. One of my favorites as a kid. I've grown apart from Spider-Man as I've gotten older, which is not something that I really ever expected to happen. I think it might be more the direction that Marvel is writing its comics right now that I'm just not interested in what they're pumping out. But I still love the character. But anyway, I follow Spider-Man Twitter, and there's a lot of Amazing Spider-Man fans out there. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 starring Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, right? And there's a lot of like, let's be honest here, this film is a masterpiece, and then 4 wide shots.
Sure.
You know, like there's a lot of that happening.
Sure.
Like one film Twitter, learn a different word besides masterpiece.
I know, it's so overused. That word is so overused.
Oh my gosh. It's something could just be good or great or awesome or swell or whatever, but not everything is a masterpiece. You know,
Swell?
Monet's, swell, whatever. I'm not here to judge. Except if you use the word masterpiece over and over and over again.
Hey-oh.
Yeah, all right. So, I need to get on my masterpiece soapbox for a second.
Here we go, folks. Here we go. It's a rare Tim soapbox. It's a rare Tim soapbox.
All right. So here we go. All right. So Monet's lilies are a masterpiece. Van Gogh's, not Van Gogh, it's pronounced Van Gogh. Van Gogh's Starry Night or Irises is a masterpiece. The David is a masterpiece. The Sistine Chapel is a masterpiece. Heck, Campbell's Tomato Soup, by, what's his name?
Andy Warhol?
Shoot, Andy Warhol.
I was like, are you about to say that Campbell, the soup is a masterpiece?
No. The art, the
yes,
pop,
no,
the
I
pop
do.
art
The Andy
way,
Warhol, yes.
You could even say that is a masterpiece because it's metatextual, right? It's making fun of consumerism by being pop art, by being consumer art innovative. That's good. A wide shot with bright colors is not a masterpiece. It's just a wide shot with bright colors. You can find it aesthetically pleasing. You can find the composition really good. You can find all of these things good. You, film Twitter, are not deemed worthy to call things a masterpiece or not a masterpiece. What gives you the right to say those things? Are you going to take that shot, that cell from that film, and hang it in the MoMA? I'd probably not. That's just not what we use that word for. You could say it's good, it's great. You could say you love it. You could say it's one of the best things you've ever seen. It's not a masterpiece. That is reserved for a very select number of things. You know what? I Am the Walrus, not a masterpiece. Yesterday, a masterpiece. That's the difference, right? There are, right? But what I'm saying.
You're not wrong at all.
I know. And sometimes those things are intangible. You can't always have the language, because language is limiting. You don't always have the language to talk about why things are great and why you love them. And that's okay. But by using the word masterpiece over and over and over and over again, you're diluting that word.
Yes.
Things are really no longer awesome. Awesome used to be grand and majestic and fantastic.
Something
and
that
wonderful.
filled you with a sense of wonder and awe.
That's right. And now awesome is just, that's cool. That's good. I enjoyed that. That's great. Because we use the word so much, we dilute its meaning. It's like F word. It's like the F word, right? If you use it so much, you dilute its meaning. It has no further meaning.
Oh my God, I really hate it when people overuse those words.
Exactly, Frank. And R2D2 for that matter. R2's chiming in. He knows what's up. He likes to swear. And so I'm sorry. The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 are not masterpieces. They're just not. But what they are very competent, for the most part, movies that you can turn your brain off, and it gives you some of the best dang Spider-Man action in anything.
This has been Tim's Soapbox.
Oh, yeah, thanks for the sound. It really took me out of the,
You're not wrong, though. You're not.
Would have kept going.
Nothing you've said is wrong. Nothing you've said is wrong. There's a lot to like about those movies. There's a lot to love about those movies. Masterpiece is pushing it, but I do find them really, they're fun. They're fun popcorn spider movies. They're not my favorite spider movies.
No.
But they're still Spider-Man, and there's still something super redeeming about them. If those movies, we say this all the time, Tim, if those movies had come out
in 1996,
we would have lost our minds about how good they were, right? Like we would have the same way we did when we saw Tobey Maguire. We lost our minds at how good it was, how good it seemed, and Science Award, etc. But we've hashed that out a lot. But those movies are still very endearing, the Sam Raimi ones, and so are the Andrew Garfield ones.
Yep. No, I think the first Amazing Spider-Man movie has more going for it than the second one does.
I agree.
The action sequences not so much. The second one, the action sequences are superb. They are so well shot and choreographed. And but there's what the Amazing Spider-Man does really well. There is a constant thread of Peter saving people. And not people that he just knows. It's not like the Tobey Maguire movies where he's like, well, I got to save Mary Jane again. Not anybody else, just Mary Jane. It is, I have to save regular New Yorkers.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just swinging through the streets and he's saving regular New Yorkers like Spidey does on the comic book page.
That's right. And he has relationships with those people. Like he there's, I think it's an Amazing Spider-Man 2 where he sees a kid getting bullied. So he comes down and talks to the kid, and he's like, and Andrew Garfield said this wasn't in the script. I wanted this in here as a fan of Spider-Man. I was a fan of Spider-Man growing up, and as a kid that age, I really needed something like that.
Sure.
And so I wanted that in the movie for kids who need something like that. And I'm like, that's what Spider-Man is about. That right there. That's what superheroes are about.
Yeah.
It's not always about the well choreographed action sequence. It's not about the wide shot. It's about what are you doing to help people. And The Amazing Spider-Man really does that well. The first one and the second one.
Yes.
It has their issues,
but the second one has more issues than the first, I would argue.
Let's talk about the first one first.
Let's talk about the first one first. We saw both these movies together, by the way.
We did. I remember.
Yeah.
I vividly remember seeing the first one with you, because I had previously seen it, and I said you should see it because it's fun. Because Spider-Man actually quips, and I think that was important.
That's right.
That was important because as much as I like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, he's a better Peter than he is a Spider-Man.
Yep.
And just generally the way that Spider-Man is written in those films.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say.
It's not even Tobey Maguire.
No, it's not a performance.
Because
there are moments where Spidey quips in those movies, and when he does, the rare times that it happens, Tobey delivers it great. But he's just not given that much quipping to do.
No, he's not. And Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man, goes further in that direction where Peter's a little he's not necessarily the cool kid, but he's not really the class nerd. He's more like the class offbeat kid.
Sure.
He's like I like photography kid. I like skateboarding and jean jackets, and I listen to I'm the alternative.
I was
going
to say alternative is definitely the word. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is fine. I actually like that take on Peter. He doesn't have to be he doesn't have to be the social anxiety kid.
Sure.
Which is what Toby's Peter was, and Tom Holland's in some way. Tom Holland's more like the really brainy kid. Like what I also like about it was they all show different aspects of who Peter Parker is, in different eras of what he is. But the Peter the Amazing Spider-Man, especially in the first one, is the rebellious teen, right? How dare I? How dare you? That kind of, and that really works for me. As a teacher, I see a lot of teenagers every day because it's my job. It's what I do, and what he says and how he acts and how he holds himself really rings true, even though he looks like he's 26 years old. It's fine. But that really works. I think the Gwen Peter love story, like their chemistry was incredible in those two movies.
Didn't hurt that they were dating in real life.
No, it didn't. And it's sad that they are not together anymore.
It is
just, because it's not my business, whatever, but they really work on screen. They worked really well on screen together.
Incredible on-screen chemistry. Yeah. Wonderful on-screen chemistry. I am blown away by it, honestly. It's one of the things when I say that those movies have very good points, that's one of the best points about those films.
Mm-hmm. I remember people harping on Peter revealing his identity to Gwen early and be like, but he's like, just as a crush on her. I'm like, that's what you do when you have a crush. That's why they rang so true. I'm like, your brain's not working when you're 16 years old and you have a crush and you can do these really cool things. You want to show off. He actually has that great scene where he shows off dunking the basketball.
Yes.
Right? Taken right from Ultimate Spider-Man. That, that really works for me too. Even the lizard works for me in that film. I like they went for the original design of the lizard, the original Steve Ditko design where he doesn't have a snout. That's not what people were used to, but I like it.
It's funny because it rubbed me the wrong way. It rubbed me the wrong way because it's not what I'm used to. But you're right. It does go back to the original. Right. But seeing it just something looked off about it because I'm not used to it, and that's fine. I whatever. Like I've gotten over it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you can't like everything about everything. Sometimes you can get over a design, and then other times designs are just they're like, why was that your choice?
Yeah.
Why? Keep continuing the thread of Amazing Spider-Man. I think Sally Field and Martin Sheen were brilliant choices of casting.
Brilliant choices of casting, I will agree. However, criminally underused.
Sure, I think Uncle Ben is always underused, but I think.
But when you have Martin Sheen,
see, here's the thing, though. I think, because we have an emotional attachment to Martin Sheen already for whatever reason, there's a weight when he dies because I already have an attachment to him, as opposed to Cliff Robertson, who I didn't know when I was I didn't know him when I was however old I was when Spider-Man came out. I don't even know, but I even knew who Martin Sheen was at that age, so I would have almost had a bigger reaction to casting somebody so large that they're Martin Sheen. It's almost like a stunt casting, but I care when they're gone. You're right that Sally Field is definitely underused, though.
She's definitely underused, because she didn't die. She, it's a bummer that we didn't get more. We didn't get more of either of them, really. And by more, with Martin Sheen, I mean even a little more. But definitely could have gotten a lot more Sally Field. If you're going to get to such big names to lend legitimacy to your project, I feel like you get some use out of them. I don't know, but that's me.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing with Amazing Spider-Man 2. We'll go to the next
sequel.
one. The first one plays itself very earnestly. It follows in the suit of like Batman Begins, where it's like, oh, we gotta be serious here, everybody. Like we can have some fun, but let's take ourselves seriously. Which is not Joel Schumacher yelling into a megaphone like, everyone remember it's a comic book. It's not just comic book to people, right? It
took itself more seriously for sure.
Yeah, it's something breathable. So it's something that you feel, something almost tangible.
You could feel the teen angst just oozing off the screen.
Oh, you sure could. You sure could, couldn't you? Amazing Spider-Man 2 decided to ignore that. And
yes.
And I think that's actually what does the film a disservice, in that, like, it still looks great. It's beautiful. It has my favorite Spider-Man costume out of all, how many films? 7 films so far, right? 3 and 3, and however many times that Spider-Man has shown up.
Yeah.
In Avengers, not counting his own films. No, that's not right. So 3 Tobys, 2 Andrews, which is 5,
and
2 Toms.
And 2 Toms.
Which is third
is
one
7.
coming. Yeah, right.
7, almost 8.
So yeah, okay. It's my favorite. I love the big white eyes. I love the colors of the red and blue. The texture of the suit really works for me. I think it's all great. He's nice and skinny and gangly, the way that Spider-Man should be. Sometimes when he's too like muscly, I'm like, you're not flexible.
He should. That's funny. You're not flexible. He should be. He should be gangly because he's a teenager. You know what I mean? Like he should be. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So but it goes for earnestness when it comes to some things like Peter and Gwen's relationship, which like it just ratchets it up all the stuff, and that's not necessarily what a good sequel should do. It shouldn't always ratchet up everything. Yeah, maybe some of the stakes should be higher, but sometimes like you need a grounding somewhere. Not everything has to come apart. So like, oh, Gwen's going to Britain and Peter and the trust and this and like too much angst. There was enough to let you have too much angst, and then you have so you have your Rhino, you have your Electro, you have your Green Goblin, you have your this and your that, and I'm like, that's a lot. It's not so much that because like they don't all play off of one another, so it doesn't necessarily feel stuffed, but they were like, okay, Andrew, you're going to play this part earnestly, and all the protagonists will play their part earnestly. All the antagonists pretend that it's 1966 and you're in and you're in the Batman Adam West TV show, would you? Okay, we'll see how these things clash together and see if they work or not. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And so that's where I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 really falls off the bandwagon for me. What do you, or just the wagon?
No, I
bandwagon.
completely agree. It does feel like they just gave a completely different set of direction to the villains. I also feel like the movie was there was a little too much going on in terms of villains. Like Sony can't help themselves, it seems. They pulled a Spider-Man.
This was the era of I got to compete with Marvel.
Yes, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. This was the same year. Don't forget. Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2 would have been 2014, so that's the same year that like Age of Ultron came out. So right. So we're in that phase of the Marvel of the MCU, and that's what they're competing with at that point. And it's just
no. Age of Ultron was 2015, so it was coming.
Okay, it was on its way.
I looked. I used my one.
Thank you for
it was
keeping me honest.
But you're right. But we knew that it was coming. So know that a second Avengers movie is coming, and they're all together. It's the second time they've come together. So now there's this pressure. Like, we gotta get somebody to join. So we can't have the heroes join, so the villains will join.
Exactly,
and
which was not a bad idea. Not a bad idea to tease a villain team up movie was actually a really good idea. As okay, well, they're doing the heroes team up movie, we're gonna do a villains team up movie. Like to tease that eventuality was a really, really fun idea, and having the whole Oscorp thing at the center of it, like all that stuff was a fun idea on paper. It was more the execution and more the Joel Schumacher was directing the villains and not the heroes.
That's right. That's right, because Mark Webb is a good director, and I just always loved the irony that his last name was Webb and he directed Spider-Man movies. He's a competent director, and it definitely feels a lot of that feels studio mandated.
I completely agree.
Yeah, it felt like Amy Pasquale more than Mark Webb.
Yeah.
Because the parts that work really work. There's like that indie earnestness is still there.
So well done. So well done. Like, he was such a relatable kid. And even though he was 8 years old, he was a relatable, teenage kid to a degree. I felt like I had a lot in common with him when I was in high school. This bourbon apparently makes me agree with you real hard.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Do you want me to not say things? Do you want me to test that? No. Yeah, like,
I don't know. How do you feel about Electro?
I love the design. I think he looks really cool. I love the translucent blue skin. I think he's in a different movie.
He is in a different movie. Yeah.
I think he's in a completely different movie, which makes me a little nervous as to why he's back for the third Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, for the third Marvel Spider-Man movie, because Jamie Foxx is a good actor. And like he was definitely given a direction and like you do this, and he was like, okay, it's all goes back to Jack Nicholson, right? It's all like I saw them ham it up, and I'm just gonna ham it up, no problem.
Yeah, I think it kind of does. I mean, yeah. I think that's the basis for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that just doesn't. It just doesn't. It
Doesn't work
didn't-
for me.
No, and it's very Selena Kyle Batman Returns.
Yes.
Like, I'm mousy and nobody loves me, and now there's a thing that now I got licked by cats or electric eels or whatever, depending on whatever movie
Yeah.
I'm in. And now people are scared of me because I'm a Looney Tune. It works for Burton. It works for Michelle Pfeiffer really well because it's all madcap like that.
Yeah, even
Like
that I've
Batman,
always-
Batman Return. I mean, the licking of the cats thing, not so much. But
even as a
you
kid,
know-
I had a hard time with that. I'm going to be honest with you.
I did too. But this is also the same movie where we have no problem with the penguin being raised by penguins.
I'm not going to say I
so-
have no problem with that.
you know what I mean? Like
The bourbon has taken a turn. I am no longer agreeing with you.
yeah, I guess so. But like, where's the line are we drawing here?
No,
Where,
it's true.
like,
It's true.
I'm not okay the cats brought her back to life, but I'm totally okay that the parents who threw their child into the sewer when he was a baby was raised by penguins and then a circus and somehow is fine.
Mhm.
Ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, it's it's one of those things of like if someone showed you a picture of Danny DeVito and gave you that story, you'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
poor Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito wore a fat suit to play the penguin.
That's true.
Which I thought was fun.
That is true.
You didn't really need Danny DeVito at that point if you're going to put the person in a fat suit.
Yes, you did because the acting and also the height.
The height, also that. Yeah. No, you're not wrong. I love him as the penguin.
I
Don't
do.
get me
I do
wrong.
too. I do too. Yeah.
I love the take. It's so interesting. Not my favorite version of the penguin, but you know,
it's different.
As we said since the beginning, sometimes things just are things. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a little less than just a thing.
Yeah. It's
Right.
not-
I don't know it. The narrative doesn't work as well. It's a little too mushed, and I think that the inclusion of Harry Osborn is just nonsense.
Too much.
It's like, oh, my blood is destroying me, Peter. I need your blood.
There-
if you're
there's just-
Spider-Man.
There is just
like,
too much going on in that movie. God, talking about it is bringing back all the feelings I had when I saw it. Where I was like, gosh, there's just so much to keep track of. And then we do the death of Gwen on top of
That's
it
right.
all.
That's right. Death of Gwen. Peter's parents were spies. Don't forget about that with the secret
Right.
subway car, which is a comic thing. Like, not the secret subway car, but his
But the
parents.
spy
His
thing.
parents were spies. Like, that's all fine. Like, I don't have a problem with any of that. It's just you're trying to do one movie. You're just trying to do too much in one movie. This is a terrible thing to say, and I think Star Wars ruined franchises.
Ooh, say
And
more.
Okay, here's the hot take. Star Wars, original trilogy
Yeah.
is told in 3, right? It's New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And ever since then, the majority of franchises go, we got to do 3. We have
Yes.
to do 3 films. We always have to do the trifecta, the trilogy. We got to call it the trilogy. No, you don't.
Right.
You can just keep going. Not everything does this. You know, Bond obviously goes on. Mission Impossible goes on. Marvel or whatever. Even Batman in the 90s, you know, you just recast and keep going. You know, but sometimes like you could just keep going. Like Raimi's did 3. It was going to be 4, but they opted to go in a new direction. Here's the 3. We have the trilogy. We got to do something else. And that's no good. Like just tell the story. If actors don't want to do it anymore, replace the actor.
Yeah.
I don't I don't think that actors should really own their roles.
I agree with you largely. Some roles I think are too iconic to be separated from the actor, but
There's another word that gets overused. So be
iconic.
careful.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like, give me an example before I agree with you.
Okay, I don't think that if they had recast Princess Leia in episode 8 or 9, that would have been a good decision. I think that would have been.
I agree with you.
Princess
sure.
Leia is too attached to Carrie Fisher. For me, I really think just she is that character. And yes, at some point we will see her recast and whatever, but probably in.
But you're also talking about Carrie Fisher having, quote unquote, like ownership over that character for 30 years.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what I'm saying, is that there was an established relationship there, where if you're talking about somebody who's played it for 2 years and they want out, but you want to keep telling stories with that character, okay, recast them and move on. Like, we'll just we'll get over it. It's a play. We're watching a play. Okay, like tonight, the role of whoever Peter Parker will be played by so and so. Okay, great. And we just go from there. Like,
I came to see Carol Channing as Peter Parker, but you know what?
Fine.
I'll watch Viola Davis. That's better. That's actually, I didn't even know I wanted that, but that's the better one.
So much better. Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like, there are some where it's like, all right, so like Batman in the 90s, just go for it. Just do it. Just do it.
That's right.
Are the results always great? No, like Batman in the 90s, but it's worth doing. Or like Bond is probably a better example, where it's like make each movie really good, and without as much concern about it has to be a trilogy. So is this the middle or the end or the beginning?
Right.
Like, just make a good movie.
You are correct in a way. So it's like Bond's a good example. Like, what if they were like, oh, like Connery doesn't want to play Bond anymore? Well, I guess we're done making James Bond movies.
Right.
Like, what is that nonsense?
And you know what? Because we're going to be done making James Bond movies after this one, let's squeeze 5 stories into this movie.
That's right.
So we can cap it off.
That's right. He'll go on 5 missions, and somehow they'll all connect for a very arbitrary reason. Yeah, no, absolutely not. No, here's the thing. You said that just make a good movie and worry about the next one next time. I submit to you Star Wars, the sequel trilogy, as Exhibit A, as to why that's not always the way to go.
You're correct. That, so let me add.
Now, that's not just the bourbon talking. You actually agree with me.
You are correct. I feel strongly that was a mistake, but to not have a story. But the difference there is that they set out to make a trilogy, and they didn't know where they were going.
Going back to my original thesis of Star Wars ruined franchises.
Yes. So you are correct. Listen, you have the masters. You are the master of this masterpiece.
Oh,
so Masterpiece Theater with Tim. So
anyway,
exactly,
I won't do the whole thing.
Precisely that. So I defer to you on these things. But yeah, I completely agree.
And that's not, obviously we love Star Wars. We have the Gospel According to Lucas now on everywhere podcasts can be found. Right. Obviously we love Star Wars. But I think that sometimes people subconsciously try to be Star Wars. And even when it comes to something as simple as like, we need a trilogy. And now, because you get jammed into that place, now we'll never know the end of The Amazing Spider-Man, because it set up all these plot threads. It was too interested in making its next movie without making the movie that was in front of it. And now, who was the man in the hat? Like, why is Norman Osborn's head in a glass jar? Why does Dane DeHaan keep getting cast in movies? These are the questions that Amazing Spider-Man will never answer for me. Speaking of Dane DeHaan, that Green Goblin look, what monster decided that was the way to go? I mean, I guess it was Mark Webb, but look, we have Sam Raimi's Power Ranger Green Goblin. It works. It works. I get where that was coming from and so on. And I get why you went in that direction. It's fine. I like it because it's nostalgic for me now. I didn't like it as much as a kid, but I like it now. I just who thought that grimy and grubby goblin was the way to go? Just looks awful. He's supposed to look awful because he's dying, but that makes it worse somehow.
There's a gritty sliminess to that world to a lot of the villainy in that world that I don't really care for. I guess that's kind of where my Kirk Connors problems are too. With it's not just the snout. There's just an overall kind of griminess to the there's a whole aesthetic there that like evil is slimy and grimy, and I just don't like that look. Like even for evil, I don't like it.
That's really interesting point. I think, I mean, like Lizard, in some way, you almost get a pass because he's
a lizard. Yeah,
he's like, yeah, well, whatever. He's doing his lizard thing. But you're right. There's always this grime. There's this sweat in this. So it's almost like you ever watch it? Any of the Godzilla films from the 60s and 70s?
Sure.
Like there's like, I think it's Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, where there's like everybody is sweaty in the entire movie. I remember as a kid, like, why are you all so sweaty? Like, I know you're nervous, but this is a little ridiculous.
Right.
And it's kind of, in some ways, it's kind of like that. We're like, heroes are clean, villains are dirty.
And it's just a choice that doesn't resonate for me. And it's kind of off-putting for me. Even I don't really care for the translucent skin for Jamie Foxx and stuff. Like, that sort of also rubs me the wrong way. There's just something kind of gross about it. And I don't usually get grossed out by even, like, straight up, like, horror films and stuff that are meant to be gross. I'm not repulsed by it, but something about the aesthetic of the villains in these films just didn't sit right with me.
That is, I love that, and I think you've hit on something I've never thought about aesthetically about those films. And Jamie Foxx's translucent skin doesn't bother me. I really like it, as I said before. But you're right; it sits in that same category as uncomfortable, grime,
uncomfortable.
And evil is uncomfortable. Evil is grime, which is actually a fine thing to say. It's like you're making a point that, like, don't be like this, be like this, and you're doing that visually, and that's okay. But I don't always, maybe I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want Norman Osborn's head in a jar. Like, what is that? That's gross.
So strange. So strange.
And so, but with, oh shoot.
Great power comes.
He does a great responsibility to end this podcast soon. So why don't you take us out? And I had to think about Dane DeHaan. Oh, I know. I knew what I was going to say before we wrap. Let's end it. So I can't remember if I talked about this on the podcast or not. I've talked about it with people before. I've talked about it with our friend Lauren, friend of the show. But there's gritty realism is the thing that always gets thrown around, right? Have I talked about this at all on the show?
I don't know. Go for it.
All right.
I want to hear
it.
it.
Number two. This is number two. Here we go. People always put gritty and realism together, right? There's always like, oh, it's going to be gritty and real, gritty realism, gritty this, gritty realism this. It's never gritty on its own, or it's never real on its own. Sometimes the real world is actually really clean. I hate to break it to everybody. Like sometimes like we wash our hands, we clean our faces. And sometimes gritty can also be fantastical. It can be otherworldly. It doesn't have to be, quote unquote, real. And that wave of I blame Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, like it's real. In some ways, I even blamed Jason Bourne, like that style of like it's in your face and it's like this and it's smash and blah blah blah. It's fun and it's great. It doesn't apply to everything. It doesn't always work with every character. The Green Goblin is not realistic. It's just not. Electro is not realistic. The Lizard is not realistic. They went with Steve Ditko's design because they were like, people won't believe that the Lizard has a snout. Why am I to believe that he can turn into a giant lizard in the first place?
Right.
Who cares if he has a giant snout or not? It's like you're taking like the Wolfman approach. Like, when Lon Chaney Jr. becomes the Wolfman, he doesn't grow a wolf snout. Okay, that's because the movie was made like a couple decades ago, and they didn't have the prosthetics to do something like that. That's okay. Now we do. Please continue and make him a wolf.
Right.
Would you, So the Lizard falls into that trap. Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin ultimately falls into that trap.
Yeah.
People won't believe that his skin is green. People won't believe that he looks like he has long ears or this, or the mask moves or this. Like,
people won't believe that a 16-year-old who gets bit by a radioactive spider gets powers.
Exactly. You have to apply the rule to all or none.
Right.
You can't have clean, fantastic Spider-Man and gritty, real Green Goblin.
Yes.
Aesthetically, they don't go together.
They don't go together.
They just don't work. You have to pick one.
And then pair that with the wildly different acting choices, where one is clean and realistic and acting with human emotions, and the other one is gritty and real looking, but acting like he's in a 60s comic book. It just doesn't go together at all. And that's really the problem I have with Amazing Spider-Man 2. Amazing Spider-Man 1, I thought was okay. Was a good movie. It was a fun movie. The second one really kind of went too far in that direction, where the villains were in a different movie, both in the way that they looked and the way that they acted, and there were just too damn many of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the juxtaposition between between all those things just is what makes the movie, which makes Amazing Spider-Man 2 fall apart.
It lacks
It has
cohesion.
really strong. Very good. Yeah, it waxes on but doesn't wax off.
Exactly.
Yeah, and actually, I take that back. It actually does both at the same time, and that's the problem.
So it's like Schrodinger's wax. Is it on or off?
Yeah, that's right. The cat is both alive and dead in the Amazing Spider-Man. We're not questioning. We know for sure. And that's where the first one is okay. Everyone knows what movie they're in right from the start. It doesn't do too much. Plus, it has I think it has my favorite Stan Lee cameo. Him listening to music in the library as the fight's going on behind him. And he has no idea what's happening. That's his best cameo in every Marvel movie.
It's so good. That was my favorite until the Captain Marvel one, where he's rehearsing for Mallrats. That might be better, but those are number 1 and 2 for sure.
Those are good ones.
For sure.
Those are really good ones.
It's maybe the funniest one. I mean, it's the most the Spider-Man one. It is so funny and so he's part of the scene. It's not just a quick cameo. It's like a whole thing that he is part. It's a slapstick comedy number that he is an integral part of.
That's right. That's what's magical about it. I do love his cameo in Spider-Man 3, where he's like, "Well, I guess one man can make a difference."
Yeah.
Enough said.
I
like it because he says "enough said" because I wax nostalgic.
Wax
so anyway,
on,
Frank,
wax off, wax nostalgic.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, do it with Tim's Soapbox Wax.
Exactly. Tim's Soapbox Wax coming to you sometime in the future. Frank, where can the people find my soapbox wax? Soapbox wax. That's really hard to say.
5 times fast.
Oh my gosh, that is so hard to say.
While you work on that tongue twister, you can find the show at beerwithgeeks.com. You can find the show notes there. You can find links to subscribe, links to leave us reviews and ratings on all of the podcast places, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, any of the podcast platforms. You'll find us there. You can also email us at beerwithgeeks@gmail.com, tweet at us at beerwithgeeks, find a link to thoughtbubbleaudio.com, where all of our other shows are, including our newest show, The Gospel According to Lucas, where Tim and I geek out about Star Wars and Jesus at the same time. It's a sort of Bible study for Star Wars fans. Check it out. You can also support us and all of our shows at patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio. For as little as $1 a month, you get extra bonus audio from Tim and I, as well as the warm feeling every night when you go to bed, knowing that you've done something to help us keep the lights on at Thought Bubble Audio. And after all, isn't that what you really want out of life? I'll leave you with that.
Oh, that's good, Frank. Yeah. Tell the people good stuff. Well, anyway, Frank, this was fun to reminisce, but also theorize and also get mad in Soapbox. There was a lot happening in this episode. Probably as much as there was in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Too much, arguably. But it was a masterpiece.
But it was a masterpiece, just as you are. So until next time, cheers.
Cheers.